Did you know that working with your dog on training daily is much better than just a once-a-week training session? The 3 things we're going to cover in today's video are why you should use positive reinforcement daily to work with your dog. The second is just how. How do you do that? And the third is practical tips for consistency in using positive reinforcement daily. Hi, I'm Terrie Hayward. I'm a professional dog trainer and behavior consultant, and if you're new here, thanks for joining us today on the channel. First, let's talk about why you would want to build a training habit using positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement helps you build a strong bond between you and your dog, and also helps stop behavioral problems before they begin. Additionally, it's scientifically proven to be more effective. You can just check out the American Society for Veterinary Behavior's position statement. Positive reinforcement also builds good behaviors through repetition. I put good in quotes because really there's no good nor bad behavior. It's all just information and communication. And you want to build a daily habit of using positive reinforcement training because then it becomes part of your day, like eating or walking with your dog. Next up, let's talk about how to build a daily training habit using positive reinforcement. You want to make sure to keep your sessions short, like 5 or 10 minutes is the maximum amount of time that you'd want to work in any one go. And you want to break that up by your reinforcement placement. For example, let's say you did a hand target, and then another hand target, and then another hand target, and then another hand target. And for the next one, you might toss the treat away to reinforce. And that way it sort of breaks up that monotony of getting into a loop. I just did a video on the 10-minute dog training myth, and I'll link that below. You also want to think about what you're using as reinforcers. The learner is the one, in this case your dog, who ultimately decides what's reinforcing. So you want to make sure that you're using things that are high enough value. High value reinforcers, praise, treats, toys, the opportunity to do something is what you want to incorporate into your reinforcer system. Another thing that you might want to think about doing is you take a large Ziploc bag and you fill that up at the beginning with everything that your dog's going to eat throughout the day. So it's the treats, it's their food, and then by the end of the day, that Ziploc needs to be empty. And what that does is that gets people starting to think about looking for things that they can reinforce. At the beginning, we reinforce offered behaviors like not barking, lying down quietly, being calm. And so we want to actively start watching for those things so that we can mark and reinforce them throughout the day. And you always want to stop on a positive note. Think about the fact that you want to avoid one more itis. Whenever you think, oh, this is going really well, let me just push it a little bit more, that's the exact time that you should stop. So finish on a high note. Always stop a little bit before you think one more rep will do it. And that way you're ending on a good note. Now let's talk about practical tips for consistency. The first thing you might think about doing is sort of setting up a training station. For example, you might have your leash by the door. You want to have your harness in a convenient spot. Whenever you think about training, you don't want to have to go rushing around like, where did I leave my clicker? Where is my treat pouch? I have no treats ready. I did a video a while ago about things that might be helpful to have on hand, and I'll link to that video below. Next up, you want to think about reinforcing things throughout the day that you want to see more of. Basically, that's where we start. We start with reinforcing offered behavior. So anything that you like, anything that you like that your dog just happens to offer, I could mark and reinforce that. Right now, she's just being nice and calm. Yes, I can mark and reinforce that. If I have a dog that's jumping, I can mark and reinforce 4 paws on the floor. So basically, again, you want to think, what is your dog offering? Is it something that I like? And if yes, go ahead and reinforce that throughout the day. You can also, as I mentioned earlier with my Ziploc trick, you can reinforce dogs using their dog food. So in addition to treats, you can also use their own food. If your dog likes their food, that helps a lot, but you want to mix things up. Specifically, for example, if you're reinforcing things in a low distraction environment like at home, you can use some potentially lower value items like your dog's food. Whereas if you're going somewhere harder like a vet's office or even outside where you're competing with all of the environmental reinforcers, you might need to use something at a higher value like a hot dog or cheese. And finally, you want to focus on progress, not perfection. So instead of getting frustrated and thinking, wow, we're not there already, so therefore I'm going to quit, think about little steps each day. Think of a piggy bank, and every time you work on something, you are essentially making a deposit. Think about a wall with every little brick being a part of the final picture. So little by little, you want to focus on that progress that you're making each day, each session in small amounts, instead of worrying about the perfect picture at the end. And those are some tips for building that consistency of using positive reinforcement with your dog each day. And finally, sort of as a bonus, let's talk about leveling up. As I've mentioned previously, we want to reinforce offered behaviors. So not even things that are cues that we've built and that we can ask for. Henry, yes. But anything that your dog offers. Again, like they're lying down on their bed calmly. They decide to just voluntarily orient and look at you. That might be, for example, as you're out walking. They're standing there calmly while you put the harness on. Those are offered behaviors that you definitely want to see more of, so therefore you can mark and reinforce them. Leveling up can also include practicing in some new environments. Not right away, but after you've practiced a lot in a lower distraction environment, like let's say you always practice in your living room. Maybe you then try it out in your kitchen, or in your front yard, or in your backyard, or in your bedroom. So start sort of leveling up very easily in starting to include more distracting environments. And finally, keep it fun. You can also do things like incorporate scent games where you teach your dog a cue like Find It, where they go and they have to find treats that you've hidden. Like any training, we always begin by associating the cue as it's happening. So I would make it really easy. Find it. So I would label the behavior as it's occurring, and then I'd back that cue out in front. Things again like scent games can keep that bond, keep that enthusiasm, and keep that excitement for training on a daily basis going. I'd like to challenge you to try to train one behavior a day for a whole week. It can be the same behavior. You can work on improving that behavior or adding in some distance, some duration, some distraction, or just, again, working on getting to a better place with a certain behavior. And then share your results. Those behaviors that you might focus on could be as easy as focusing on reinforcing your dog for hanging out on their dog bed, or remaining calm while you put on their harness, or keeping forepaws on the floor instead of jumping up or counter surfing. And please feel free to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more dog training tips. Thank you.